Think German tanks in World War II, and you probably picture the Tiger or Panther. But what about the biggest mistake? Many point to the Maus, that absurdly huge, super heavy tank. And yeah, it was a colossal waste of resources. But was it the worst tank ever? Not even close. The real story of bad tanks isn't just about one country's folly. It's a global saga of delusion, incompetence, and wishful thinking that sent thousands of soldiers to their doom in metal coffins. So today, we're counting down the top 10 worst tanks in history, machines so flawed they were often more dangerous to their own crews than to the enemy. Forget the Maus for a second. These are the real rolling disasters. Coming in at number 10 is the American M3 Lee. Billed as a temporary monster rushed into production. It was meant to hold the line until the Sherman arrived. On paper, it had a powerful 75mm gun. The problem, that main gun was stuck in the hull, with a very limited traverse. The tank itself was incredibly tall, making it a giant, easy-to-hit target. Its engine ran hot, and in the desert, its air filters clogged constantly. Crews nicknamed it the Iron Coffin for a reason. While it did fill a gap, its compromised design made it a deeply flawed and clumsy fighter. Achinam Bernini, we have the French Renault R35. This was supposed to be a tough little infantry shield, a mobile bunker to support troops. It was compact, sure, but that's where the good news ended. It was painfully slow, unable to keep up with the infantry it was meant to protect. Its armor, while thick, was cast in a way that made it brittle and prone to shattering. The gun was tiny, barely able to threaten other tanks, but its biggest flaw was the one-man turret. The commander had to load the gun, aim it, fire it, and command the tank all at once. It was an impossible workload that made the R-35 tragically ineffective in the chaos of battle. Cruising into the number 8 spot is the British Covenanter. This was Britain's attempt at a modern cruiser tank designed for speed and exploitation. It looked the part, low-slung and sleek. But under the hood was a disaster. The designers placed the engine's radiators in the front of the tank, a bizarre choice that created a catastrophic cooling problem. The long, complex pipework running through the crew compartment was prone to leaks, and the system simply couldn't keep the engine from overheating, especially in hot climates. The Covenanter was so unreliable that it was deemed completely unfit for combat and was relegated to training duties in Britain, a rolling testament to failed engineering. At number 7, we find the Soviet T-60. Born out of the desperate panic of the German invasion. The T-60 was designed to be a cheap, mass-produced reconnaissance vehicle. And it was cheap, but you get what you pay for. It was essentially a two-man panic box. The armor was paper-thin, vulnerable to even heavy machine guns. Its 20mm cannon was woefully underpowered against German armor. Visibility was terrible, and its automotive reliability was poor. For the two-man crew crammed inside, it was a terrifying experience. A fragile scout sent to face a predator it couldn't fight or outrun. Driving into number 6 is the Japanese Type 95 Hogo. On the surface, it was a decent light tank for the 1930s, intended for mobile infantry support across Asia. But by the time it faced American forces in the Pacific, it was a death trap. Its armor was so thin that a .50 caliber machine gun could slice right through it. Worse, it was powered by a diesel engine, which is usually safer, but the Japanese design had flaws that made it prone to catching fire. With a one-man turret and a weak 37mm gun, it stood no chance against the M4 Sherman. For its crews, it was a gasoline-powered matchbox, hopelessly outclassed and outgunned. At the halfway point, number 5 is the British Matilda I. This was the original infantry tank, designed with one thing in mind: armor, and it was heavily armored for its day. The problem was everything else. To keep costs down, it was built around a commercial truck engine, which made it agonizingly slower than a soldier walking. And its only armor? A single machine gun. That's right, a tank with no cannon. By the time it saw combat in France, in 1940, it was completely obsolete. It could absorb hits, but it couldn't fight back against enemy tanks, making it a slow-moving steel target. Rumbling into the number 4 position is the Soviet T-35, the land battleship. With 5 turrets and a crew of 11, this thing was a propaganda dream, a symbol of Soviet industrial might. In reality, it was a mechanical nightmare. It was ridiculously long and heavy, and its transmission and engine were constantly breaking down. Most T-35s were lost to mechanical failure, not enemy action. Coordinating fire from 5 separate turrets was a logistical impossibility, and its armor was mediocre, not nearly strong enough for a tank of its size. It was a parade ground queen and a battlefield disaster. Breaking down at number 3 is the German Panther, specifically the early models. Wait, the Panther? Isn't that one of the best tanks of the war? Well, yes, eventually. But when it was rushed to the front for the Battle of Kursk, it was a catastrophe. The advanced design was plagued with severe teething problems. The final drive and transmission were notoriously weak and would fail after just 100 miles or so. Engines would overheat and catch fire. Many Panthers broke down before they even saw the enemy. While the design had immense potential, its premature deployment made the early models unreliable lemons that died by their own hand. Now we arrive at the infamous number 2, the German Maus. Yes, here it is. This 188-ton behemoth is the poster child for impracticality. It was promised to be invincible, a mobile fortress. In reality, it was a strategic farce. It was too heavy for any bridge, so it had 2 ford rivers using a complex and dangerous snorkel system. It drank fuel at an insane rate and was pathetically slow. It was a colossal waste of engineering talent, steel, and resources that Germany desperately needed elsewhere. Only 2 prototypes were ever completed, and they never saw combat. The Maus wasn't a weapon, it was a delusion cast in steel, a tank with no battlefield purpose whatsoever. And finally, at number 1, the worst tank in history, the Italian M30 and 40ths. While other tanks on this list were flawed, the M30 and 40ths was a complete failure on every level, a symbol of industrial and military decline. It was promised as Italy's answer to modern medium tanks. Instead, it was a riveted death trap. Its armor plates were joined by rivets, and when the tank was hit, these rivets would pop off and fly around the interior like white-hot shrapnel, killing the crew even if the shell didn't penetrate. Its armor was thin, its gun was mediocre, and it suffered from constant mechanical failures. Facing British and American tanks in North Africa, the M30 and 40s were slaughtered. They earned the grim nickname self-propelled coffins. The tank's failure was a source of immense suffering for its crews and a national humiliation. A tragic outcome of poor design and shoddy engineering, from the clumsy M3 Lee to the lethal M30 and 40ths. These tanks prove a crucial point. Bad design kills, unreliability, deadly protection flaws, and weak firepower turn these machines into liabilities. They represent the immense human cost of engineering failures, a stark reminder that on the battlefield, sloppy work is paid for in blood. Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into military history. See you next time.